Hey, welcome to the Stories Through the Camera podcast, episode 5. My name is Chris Butel, and in this episode I sit down with not one, not two, but 3 guests. This episode was definitely putting my podcasting setup through its paces, really challenged the limitations of my little audio recorder, but I had a great conversation with the filmmakers behind the incredibly ambitious short film called Waltzing Tilda. So my guests today were Jonathan Williamson, who was the director, Raquel Lind, who was the producer, and Holly Fraser, who was the lead actor. If you haven't had a chance to check out the film yet, I'd highly recommend you do. You can actually watch it right now on YouTube entirely for free, and I'll have that all linked up in the episode show notes at www.storiesthroughthecamera.com. Yeah, the film is a post-apocalyptic short film, and as we discuss in this episode, these guys pulled off some really ambitious visual effects shots. So if you're into VFX and want to know how to do it on a small budget, this is definitely the episode for you. It was a great conversation I had with these guys, and I definitely, as always, learn a lot. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. How you guys all going?
Yeah, good.
Doing well?
Good to be here.
Yeah.
I've never been on a podcast before.
Me neither.
This is cool.
So I guess I wanted to start. What was the why was this the film that you were wanting to make, and what interested you about the project?
I really like end of the world films and last person in the world films, and I came up with it. I came back to Sydney. I've lived here before, but I came back to study at Sydney Film School, and I was just walking around Sydney, and I come from like a small village in Sweden. I'm not built for like cities, so I was like, oh god, there's too many people, too much traffic, too much noise. Can everyone just leave? And this would be really cool. Like I would really enjoy the city if everyone could just go. So it was partially that feeling, and partially I started thinking like, oh, could I make like a last person in the world film? So I knew it would be kind of hard, but that was like what was fun about it, to see if we could do it and like do it on a film school budget.
And Raquel, are you from Sweden as well? Like, how did you and Jonathan meet?
I'm from Spain.
Spain, sorry. This is my stupid Australian not understanding the different countries in Europe. Yeah.
Accent. So I'm from Spain, and I came to the same school as Jonathan to try producing, because I finished uni in Spain before coming, but I did cinematography and mainly photography. Mm-hmm. So Waltzing Tilda is actually the first film I produced in my life. And we met like just talking about it, and the first day at class, I guess.
Yeah, wow. And talk to me a little bit about your interest in moving away from cinematography and photography into producing.
Well, my interest in photography and cinematography comes because my father is a photographer. So when I was working in Spain, I just realized that you'd kind of have to produce nowadays your own projects, and I really, really like it. So when I came to Sydney Film School, I definitely wanted to try something new and farther away from cameras, because it's what I've been doing like my whole life. And yeah. And
so Jonathan approached you with this film, and you were kind of like, okay.
Yeah, what's better when you come to Sydney than like tell a story about the city and an Australian person alone in the city.
Yeah,
so I found it really interesting.
Yeah, I must say I was quite surprised. Like, you guys are both international filmmakers, and it's such a Sydney film. It's such an Australian film. But it definitely still kind of has that interesting, I wouldn't say outsider's eye, but it's like you've got an interesting perspective on the city, which I think is cool, that potentially people who have lived here their whole lives might miss.
That's really funny, because all our classmates, they are mainly from Australia, and they all try to make their films look like it's in Australia. Like, we've heard a lot in class, like, oh, let's not go to that forest because it looks really Australian. And
you guys embraced it.
Yeah. For us was really funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Such a beautiful place, and everyone was like, no, please, I don't want to make it look like Australia.
Yeah, I think a lot of Australian filmmakers sort of have this, what's often referred to as like a cultural cringe. We're like, we made all these movies in the 80s, which were like these Ozploitation movies, which were... And the movies that do get made, because we have such a small film industry, are so broad that we almost feel sort of awkward about like seeing Australian stuff. But what I liked about you guys was the film you guys made it wasn't a caricature of Australia. Like, it's an Australian film, but there's no kind of typical, there's no Red Dog or Crocodile Dundee or
It's very true.
Yeah, anything like that. So you guys made this film whilst at film school. Is that how the project got started?
Yeah.
Wow. So for those who haven't seen it, we probably should have done this a little bit earlier on, but for those who haven't seen it, can you just give me a brief synopsis, Jonathan, of what the film's about?
So it's like a dystopian comedy drama about this lone wolf called Tilda, who really hates humans and really hates the world. And one day she finds that everyone is just gone, just mysteriously gone. And it's sort of about how she first really enjoys being the last person in the world. Of course, eventually she starts to realize that maybe this isn't so great, but she just denies it and she gets drunk and she blows stuff up and behaves like a child, basically.
And so it's a pretty ambitious film. I mean, there's some incredible like VFX shots, ranging from not just matte paintings, but some pretty extensive, what I understand to be like 3D, buildings, coming down and some really intense stuff. How did you know you were going to be able to pull this incredibly ambitious film off whilst at film school, on what I would imagine would be a fairly modest budget?
I didn't know. I thought we probably could, but I always kind of tried to aim a little bit too high because then you have to get better. So some of it, I didn't know how I would pull it off. Some of the effect shots, I thought, I'm probably going to have to find someone else to do this because in the end, I did all the visual effect shots. That wasn't really the plan. I thought that someone else would do some of the explosions and stuff. But then I couldn't really find someone really good who could do it for free because we couldn't afford to pay someone.
Sure.
So in the end, I just thought, I'll just do it myself.
And did you have a VFX background or had you?
Yeah, I did. And that's probably, if I didn't, I probably couldn't have made the film because of my visual effects background, I knew that like we could shoot in places. We didn't have to like shut down streets. We could actually shoot with people in the background and then I could paint them out.
And Raquel, as a producer, when Jonathan's saying all this stuff to you, are you nodding your head going, oh, I don't know how we're going to pull this off? Or what were the conversations you guys were having in order to achieve those really ambitious shots?
Well, what I was really worried was about like the huge amount of locations that we had. Like, how are we going to shoot like all of this in a week with like 20 locations? This is not going to work. So I trusted him with the VFX. I was more worried about like time-wise and all the locations and how I was going to manage all the crew for first time. I didn't even think about the VFX during the pre-production. Was like, oh, okay, you will do it. But what about all of these locations?
There's enough other stuff to worry about.
Yeah.
I think you never showed that worried side to me. I think you were always just like, I'll get permission to shoot at the Opera House. But the teachers were really like, can you make another script? Or like, make it shorter, less locations. You can't do all those effects. It's not going to work. Do something else.
You must have had a lot of doubters. Like when I first came into audition, I remember being like, yeah, the script is awesome, but like, how are you going to do it? That it doesn't sound possible. And then Jonathan whips out his laptop and shows me a bunch of
stuff
he's been working on. And I was like, okay, wow, you're amazing.
Yeah, so what was that background, Jonathan? Were you working for a VFX house in Sweden or?
No.
Or just videocopilot.com shoots or?
Kind of, yeah. Like I've been doing it since I started making films when I was like 14, and probably when I was about 15, I started making visual effects, because I really enjoyed like the tricking people, like making something and making people go like, oh wow, how did you do that? Like kind of the normal stuff that people do when they start making effects, like clone videos, like my father throwing a snowball at himself and stuff, and people go, oh wow, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have any education in it, just like Video Copilot and YouTube, and like you can learn anything from the internet.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so when you guys were, just talk to me a little bit about the pre-production process. Holly, you mentioned that you went in for an audition, but how did you guys go about casting? how were you getting your crew on board and the rest of your key creatives? What were you guys going through?
Well, the first decision that we took together was to have like a really, really small crew.
We shot for 10 days in total. 6 of those days we had a crew of about 5 or 6 people. And then we shot for 4 more days with just me, Raquel, Holly, and Paul, who was the cinematographer. And that's when we did most of the like shots on the streets, like visual effect shots and stuff. Because then we don't have sound anyway. So I thought it was important to keep it as small as possible to be able to move fast. And we had a really small camera. We had a Panasonic GH4.
Oh, cool. Wow, I thought it was maybe shot on a Red or
No.
something. Yeah, wow. GH4, that's really cool.
Mm.
So you both knew that you were going to have to wear lots of hats throughout the entire process.
So basically during the pre-production, like was Jonathan and I spending a lot of time together thinking about like how we want to pull it off, like yes, mainly like the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. So we both talk about like the costume. We went like to find it together.
That's really cool. And so Holly, you just mentioned that, you read the script, but naturally would have doubts. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of actors who go into auditions for various film schools and they've promised the world, but it can quickly, not work out because of, all the challenges people face. At what point did you sort of decide, okay, I can trust these guys and I definitely want to do this film?
I actually went to Sydney Film School as well, and I studied producing there, which I do alongside acting. And Jonathan and Raquel both had a very good reputation there. I hadn't known them personally before the film, but everyone spoke very highly of them and their skills, and that was an important thing to me. And then obviously reading the script, I was just like blown away. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And for some reason, I just trusted that they could pull it off. And the way that Jonathan spoke about it so calmly, about his ability to do it, that I believed him and I trusted him. And even filming everything, and like, I don't have a brain for VFX. I didn't know how it was all going to come together, but Jonathan did, and we'd have to do very strange setups, and I'd be walking along the side of the harbour bridge, and Jonathan would say, I'm going to put you into the middle of the harbour bridge, and I'm like, I don't know how that's possible, but I just trusted him and he did it. That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I think trust is so important in those VFX shots that you don't end up looking like a complete dork as an actor because something hasn't come together properly. But I've got to say, it's a real credit to you guys. I have a somewhat of an understanding of what's capable of VFX. I think everybody's seen those behind the scenes shots of Game of Thrones and how they can put a city in the background and stuff. But when I was watching the film, I had my little notebook open, and the first thing I wrote down was, how did you clear the harbour bridge? Because I just genuinely didn't see sort of seamless how you pulled it off. Can you talk to me a little bit about how, as a director, Jonathan, you were juggling both the narrative structure and working with Holly and your other actors, and also keeping this VFX brain going and keeping those VFX shots in mind at the same time?
There was never any point where it was just like, this shot is just for VFX, like this is just supposed to be cool. It was always about the story. I guess there was some stuff where it's like, now we really want to show off the city, but it was always some either voiceover or like dialogue between Tilda and the rabbit. If you haven't seen the film now, you're like, the rabbit? There's a rabbit in it.
Yeah.
A talking rabbit.
A talking rabbit. Who's your co-star, Holly, which I alluded to before. And he's not a VFX rabbit. He's a working rabbit.
Not totally CGI.
Yeah.
No, it's a real rabbit.
Yeah, cool.
Not when he's dead.
Oh yeah. He spoilers. Well, I hope they have seen it actually.
Yeah. He's he comes back to life by the end of the film, right? You didn't.
He went to Bunny Heaven.
Bunny Heaven. Oh yeah, that's right, isn't it? Okay, so can you talk to me a little bit about what were some of the challenges you guys were facing throughout the production process?
Because it's a last person in the world film, there's like a lot of complications. Like sound is a really big thing, because I didn't want to just ADR everything. So we had to find locations where our sound guy Luke could have like a fighting chance to record usable sound.
Yeah, because the whole conceit of the film is if everyone in the world is gone, then there's not going to be a lot of atmos. That's tricky for a sound guy to try and replicate, particularly if you're not doing ADR. Yeah.
Like even if you hear a little bit of traffic noise in the background or something, yes, the illusion is ruined. So we had to find places where it was quiet enough for him to record sound, but also like I didn't want to go to a quiet park or something where it would be quiet anyway. I wanted to shoot in places where there should be people and traffic. So it becomes like a thing that the audience is like, oh, this is weird. Mm.
But the day we filmed the scene near Mrs. Macquarie's chair, and we were filming by Sydney Harbour, and we were very lucky that someone decided to climb the harbour bridge that day, got a taxi to the bottom, just decided to start climbing up it. And so there was lots of news and police helicopters floating above, completely destroying all of our audio recordings.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But somehow Luke got rid of that, right? Like, we didn't ADR that, did we?
We did ADR it, but it wasn't as good.
Right.
But then I did a sound design, so I managed to actually save some of it with noise reduction and use like dialogue from different takes and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. So you're also doing the sound design.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So your cinematographer who isn't here, did they sort of have some sort of understanding of what would be capable with the VFX stuff, or were they sort of just putting their trust in you that you'd be able to pull it off?
Well, I guess they had to put a lot of trust into me.
Because when you're explaining to them like, oh, hey, the Centrepoint Tower is going to explode and crumble, you know, did they have to keep anything in mind in terms of exposure or, you know, not moving the camera, or what were the things that your cinematographer had to kind of understand in order to pull these VFX stuff off?
So the main thing was for every shot where something would have to be painted out, we basically had to keep the camera locked down. There's a few moving shots, but we tried to keep almost everything like that locked down so it would be easier to paint everyone out. And then we would, in post, add handheld shake to it.
Because for those who don't understand VFX stuff, I mean, it's an order of magnitude more difficult once the camera's moving, because you have to track elements within your frame and stuff. But it's cool that you still kept that handheld aesthetic, but did it in post.
Yeah, I wanted it to look kind of dirty and like almost like someone was there with her filming it, like, oh look, she's blowing up the tower. So we also added like a lot of grain and stuff.
Yeah, cool. And so Holly, for you as an actress, how was it acting both with a rabbit and with no one else on screen? How were you sort of crafting your character, and how did you sort of break down the script to be able to do this film justice?
Yeah, it was tricky because the acting technique that I usually go to is rooted in the other person. So you're looking at them to see if you're getting what you want in that scene. And that was a bit tricky with the bunny, but not impossible. I think I had to relate to this character. Like, you might think, okay, if everyone else leaves the world, you would be really sad and lonely. But I had to find reasons why she would be really glad that everyone is gone. And for me, I'm a pretty big environmentalist, and so I was, you know, like, this is great. This would be one reason that it'd be good if everyone left the planet. It could start to repair itself. It was tricky. It was tricky because a lot of it depended on if people would walk in front of me in certain shots, and we'd have to go back and go again straight away. And if the bunny decided to bounce out of shot, we'd have to go again straight away. So it certainly had its challenges, but I think you just got to stay in the zone and in the mindset of the character and just keep going.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because a big mantra in the acting world is that acting is reacting, but when you don't have anything to react from, it's definitely a different discipline to you know, internalize it or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it was helpful, like, if it would give me a dead stare back, which the character would anyway, Shane, it was like, stuff you. Like,
yeah.
Tell them about like the dancing in the street and the naked shots and stuff.
Yeah, those are interesting. So we had one shot where I'm celebrating that everyone is gone and I'm dancing in the middle of the street, and we had to do it literally in the middle of the street with lots of cars and people walking around me, but Jonathan was going to paint them out.
And you just bare butt naked.
I got a lot. Oh, this wasn't the naked one. This is clothed, but it was a bit embarrassing, and people would talk to me, on the street, and then walking naked down the street. Yeah, that was a lot of fun because there's obviously people around, and we're worried that people might come at any point. But yeah. We did it.
Serious trust there, you know.
That was Holly's idea, actually, because usually I would be like, if I wouldn't do it, I'm not gonna ask the actor to do it.
I mean, I didn't particularly want to do it, but I didn't have a huge problem with it. But we were talking about like, what would you do if you were the last person on Earth? And that one came up early. A lot of people suggested that to us. We're like, yeah. And then we got to this point where we were filming a bunch of things and some things weren't working and we were limited in what we could actually do because I'm not the last person on Earth. And we're like, all right, we should do the naked shot. We should do it. We'll do it quick and everyone can go home.
Yeah. And so when Jonathan said he'd only ask you to do something that he himself would do, did you have to tell him, okay, it's fine, you don't have to get naked to direct this?
I don't think Jonathan would do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So are there any other kind of moments on set that you found particularly challenging or stuff that you learnt throughout the production process?
What did I learn? Well, everything was my first project as a producer. It takes a lot of time to produce something, but it's definitely worth it. And then maybe like that is not bad if you have help from others. Like I learned how to like ask some people who knows more than me. Obviously, because it was my first time, I asked like my mentors and my teachers, and I was asking other people, and maybe I didn't do that in the past. Like you think that you know everything, and then suddenly I didn't know anything. So I had to ask a lot of people, and I think it took me a lot of time to do some things that nowadays I will do a lot quicker.
And what do you think makes a good producer?
I guess empathy towards all the crew members, towards the actors, like the cast. They are acting in front of the camera for so many hours, like sometimes 12 hours, and you have to understand how they feel and try to like make everyone happy. And then you have to also plan it on pre-production to avoid problems on set, because when the people is tired, when the people is been walking around the city for 15 hours, you are the guilty one. So you kind of need to like have that in mind in advance and try to like make it easier for everyone. Yeah,
you might be fading yourself, but you have to put a smile on your face and you're like, come on guys, let's keep on moving. Yeah, that's really cool. So one of the things, I don't know how you feel, Holly, but one of the things I personally found like within the acting world, I feel like the really good actors in Sydney gravitate towards theatre and all their friends are actors. And then for filmmakers, I think one of the challenges that we can face is that particularly for young filmmakers, it's almost like we can get obsessed with really technical stuff like what sensor size you're shooting on, what lenses you are, but for you, Holly, what do you think that relationship is like between actors and filmmakers? And I guess my question is, what's your thoughts on the scene within Sydney and Australia?
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah, it is. Interesting. Well, yes. So I grew up acting. I started acting when I was about 10 years old, and I did it all throughout school. And then it was my main career when I finished school. And then a few years out, I decided that I wanted to learn how to make films as well. So I went to Sydney Film School and I specialised in producing. And now I pretty much juggle the two. And as you said, it's interesting. There's a huge community around acting. And I think there's kind of this masochistic thing where they all love that they can't get enough work and they don't have enough money, and in a way it brings them all together, and it's nice. It's really nice. And with filmmaking, there is a community, but I think there is less of one. It seems a bit more competitive, and people really trust their own skills and not always the skills of others. I'm very guilty of that as well. And so it is different. The relationship between them, it's interesting now knowing a lot of the filmmaking side, because I get onto sets and instead of just focusing on my character, I'm interested in what camera they're shooting on and if my mic is in the right position and all these other things that I probably shouldn't. But I also think it really helps me because I learnt that the most important thing is storytelling, and it's not about you. It's not about what your character's going through necessarily. It made me a less selfish actor because I realised that the story is the most important thing. What else is in that question?
There's so much. It's a bit of a ramble, really. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, because sometimes maybe younger actors can be kind of myopic, I think is the word, that, they're focusing on, my buttons are not right on my shirt, but it's like, well, we're on a 24mm and we're 100 meters away from you, so we're not even picking up the button.
Though it is important, and I know from making films myself, that's exactly what you need in an actor, someone who completely thinks about themselves and their own character, because you're thinking about all these different other things, and to have someone who's gone through and investigated everything about this character, they discovered things that you would have never thought about, even though you wrote it or you've spent weeks in pre-production producing it. They will find these finite details, and you can't lose it as an actor because that's your job.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you said that a lot of people are really obsessed with the technology and like, oh, what camera did you use and what lenses but I think me and Raquel are really not like that. We wanted to do it like as cheap and dirty as possible. Like the camera we used is pretty cheap. It's like a consumer budget camera basically. And we didn't use a lot of equipment. Most of it is shot in natural light. And like we said, most of it was shot with 3 people. We kind of learned everything ourselves. Like the stuff, I already knew some stuff within visual effects, but like the stuff we didn't know, we researched ourselves. Like everything is on the internet.
Yeah. How does that make you feel? I mean, you're no longer at film school.
No.
Right. Yeah. But whilst at film school, when you were like, well, I can learn all this stuff from the internet, but were you ever sort of like, why am I at film school in the first place? Or what do you think is the value of film school when all that information is so readily available?
To be honest, I think film school for me was good to
connect with other people.
Connect with other people.
Yeah, both that and also used to like give me a deadline and like someone says to me like you have to have a script by this date and then you have to shoot it and then at the end of the year we're gonna show this at the school festival for like I don't know 300. How many are at the festival? I don't know. Let's say 10,000 people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I think often creatives thrive when there's a deadline or there's like massive limitations because when you've got all the time in the world that you can get away with not making anything for months and months and months.
Very true.
Yeah. So Holly, you mentioned you are also a producer. Were you helping these guys out and putting your producer hat on, or was it a scenario where you just had to solely focus on your character?
I don't know. Was I? It's probably something I can't completely turn off. Like I think I asked a lot of questions about practicality of things. I think
Suggested a lot of
one
things?
time we wanted to shoot in a store and where we went in and I ate a bunch of chocolate off the shelves and stuff and we had to go in and ask the owner if we could, and Raquel and I went in together and we said, hello, would you mind if, and we got turned back a couple of times, but we're like, no, we'll pay for everything. And yeah,
that's cool. And
but you also did a lot of stuff like basically all the film takes place outside except for a few scenes in Tilda's apartment and in a pub, which we shot at the Alexandria Hotel. So for one day we shot all of our interiors and that day was kind of horrible. I don't like shooting inside. I like shooting outdoors.
It was a long day too.
Yeah, it was really long. Like it was supposed to be maybe 10 hours. It probably became like 14 hours or something.
Awesome.
And at the end of that, everyone was so tired and
probably at times helped your character, Holly, who's in this like drunken stupor at times. Or,
yeah. But then you kicked in and like, no, come on guys, we're gonna pack it into the car, and like you got your car and got all the equipment and
that's right.
Like you did a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to help out, like carry things if I could, and I know what it's like. I've made a lot of films at this level, like guerrilla filmmaking, but I'm same as these guys. I don't turn my nose up at it. It's kind of the best way to make a film sometimes, just like with a bunch of people who are really enthusiastic, who just want to make it happen, and they're willing to problem solve and just figure out solutions. It's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So talk to me a little bit. You'd wrapped shooting on the film. And you're moving into post, and I imagine that's when most of your small crew that you did have, they're gone, okay, awesome, keen to see the first edit. How did you feel, Jonathan, when you were just going through the rushes and sort of faced with, okay, now I have to spend hours and hours of pulling off this VFX work? Can you just talk to me a little bit about that post-production process?
Basically, right after shooting is always the lowest point for me on a film. That's where I just feel like, this is so bad, this is shit. What did we shoot? Oh God, we didn't get all these shots that we planned, and we didn't do this and we didn't do that, and that's not gonna work the way I thought it would. And then the first edit is like horrible because it's the
like,
worst.
I'm a fraud.
Yeah. It's the worst version of your film that you're ever gonna see.
And not like that's something that everyone faces when they make their film. But once again, particularly with the VFX stuff, like this film is elevated so highly through the VFX. I imagine not seeing them in place or only seeing temp stuff would have added to that sense of I don't know if we've pulled this off yet.
Yeah, I guess it was a little bit awkward to see some of it without the VFX, because in almost every outdoor shot in the film, there's some person or traffic in the background. But I kind of had to just turn that off and not think about like, oh, this is gonna take so much time to like paint out. I just had to focus on the edit, and then later on I started thinking about the effects. Because otherwise I would just have been like, oh, no, let's not use this shot. It's going to take too long to paint all this out.
But were you making this film at film school? You must have been working to pretty tight deadline. Were you just cramming, pulling really long days and long nights to get it all together? Or how did you pull it all off?
Yeah, but basically the most stressful time was before the shoot, because at school we all have different specializations. So Raquel's was producing, mine was editing. So besides writing and directing this one, I had to edit 3 other films.
Wow. Wowzers, yeah. In what, like a couple month, time period? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, over we had maybe 5 months after the shoots. But because I was an editor, I had to make my film first. So I was the first person in our class to shoot the film, so I didn't have as much pre-production time as everyone else. But so then once we got into editing, I had the most time out of everyone. But it was still a lot of late nights, a lot of energy drinks, a lot of listening to podcasts while rotoscoping. Yeah. If you know what rotoscoping is, it's the most boring, time-consuming, boring. I hope maybe someone out there is listening to this podcast while they're rotoscoping. And I was
if they are, they're just freaking out right now. Yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, he's talking to me.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, rotoscoping, you have to go frame by frame to paint out a certain element. It can be really, really tedious.
Yeah.
That's why I've never been a VFX guy. But, did you have a screening and show Holly, or how were you getting feedback from?
At school, every week, we have one screening with the teachers and everyone in the class. After a while, everyone has seen it so many times, and it becomes sort of not as helpful. So we also did a real test screening with all the other students. So I think maybe 30 or 40 students saw it. And then we asked a bunch of questions. And
what was the kind of feedback what were the questions you were asking them?
If they understood everything in the story. I mean, it's a fairly simple story, but I wanted to keep it a bit vague, exactly what's going on, exactly why all the people are gone. But we did have an idea behind it. So basically asking what they understood, what they took from the story, what they didn't understand, if there were any parts they thought were dragging, or were there jokes that wasn't funny.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes as helpful as asking specific questions, sometimes you may have watched the film 100 times, but as soon as you show it to someone, you immediately want to hit the space bar and be like, okay, I know what I've got to fix now. It's almost immediately apparent. As soon as you just show someone, they don't even need to say anything necessarily. Yeah, that's really cool. And Holly, how did you feel once you had seen it come together? Did you feel like, I put my trust in these guys and they were able to pull it off?
Yeah, I remember I saw a couple of cuts along the way, but the first one that I saw, it didn't have everyone painted out and stuff. So I was like, oh, cool, the story's all there, it's great, but there's still people there. And Jonathan's like, yeah, I'm going to get to that. But yeah, there was a few things. I think it got shorter and shorter. There was a few jokes in there that we weren't sure if they're funny, and we took them out. There was a lot more explosions added in as we went.
Oh yeah,
it must have been fun just blowing up Sydney icons left, right, and centre.
It looked amazing. Yeah, but I was really impressed, and I knew that my trust was well placed, for sure.
I think everything evolved during the editing. I find some people, when they go into editing, kind of have the mindset that this is all we have to work with now. We have to make this work. Whereas I'm like, well, we're still here in Sydney. Holly is available.
Holly's got nothing going on.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, we did pickups.
Oh, you did? That's cool.
Yeah, we did pickups. Some of it was picking up shots that we needed, but a lot of it was just new stuff. For example, there's a scene in the film where Tilda is on top of the opera house and she has painted graffiti all over it. During principal photography, we actually just shot her dancing in front of the opera house. But then we kind of thought, it would be so much cooler if she had climbed the opera house and she's on the roof. And
so you just went back and did that pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And we did some more stuff with her blowing up a building. After there's a time jump where the film jumps 2 years, and it starts with this building just being demolished. That was also from the pickups.
And that's cool. I mean, that's a really good point, that sometimes it's like, okay, well, we're just missing this element and this element. We'll go get it, and you know, that will plug these holes. Like, you know, pickups aren't a dirty word.
It's one of the luxuries of like, you guys own the camera, right? And I was there, and a small crew, and
and you're doing all the editing yourself. It's not like, we're paying an expensive post house to pull all this off.
Yeah, exactly. We also did some stuff where we just changed. There was like especially one joke when you went, "I'm the king of the world," and it was supposed to be like a laugh out loud moment, but it just fell flat every time in like every screening. So we just changed it. We changed the joke. We went back to the same location and sort of did the same beat of the story. We just always had the mindset, I think, that like if something wasn't good enough, we did something about it. We didn't just go like, I guess we have to use this. Like, no, we'll redo it.
We'll do it again. Yeah, cool. So you'd finished the film and you had that Sydney Film School screening, but it seems like the film's been doing pretty well beyond just a film school project. I mean, you've got people from different magazines and stuff hitting you up, and it seems like you've entered it to a few film festivals. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, and also your post film school strategy of getting the film out there?
Yeah, I put a lot of effort into the release of the film, because I think a lot of people, they send it to festivals for a while and then they upload it and just hope people will find it. But I thought people aren't going to find it. I have to do something, because otherwise they're just going to watch the cat videos. So I must have sent out like 300 emails or something. Like people, those magazines, people are kind of like, oh, it's so cool, they wrote about it. But I put a lot of effort into like making them find it. Yeah. And just kind of figuring out this strategy up to the online release, like posting kind of funny content and stuff to make people realize, oh, this thing exists.
Can we dive a little bit deeper into that? Like, so what was that strategy like, and how are you developing that strategy?
Well, the main thing has been the Facebook page. I thought it was important to make the content we posted a bit funny, not just like uploading trailers and stuff, but we did like, because the bunny in the film kind of has the power to break the fourth wall. I thought we could do something with that, like a teaser or something. Like we made a lot of teasers and trailers and stuff that had different content than from the film. Like most of the content in the teasers and the trailer is actually not in the film. So we did especially one teaser with the bunny. We had a shot from principal photography when he's just sitting on a wall. So we did like a 30-second teaser where he is like presenting the film, but doing kind of a bad job of it.
Hi, I'm Shane. So, Holly Fraser's in this new movie as some called Tilda. She like runs around Sydney, which is all post-apocalyptic, and she blows a bunch of stuff up, like Queen Victoria's head. She blows up Sydney Tower, for sake. And, she gets naked as well. So, I'm gonna see that. There's, kangaroo, and I mean, that's about it, to be honest. But, like, you want to see it or not?
That's awesome. Was he your rabbit, or?
No, it's our friend Indiana's rabbit. Her name is Indiana, and the rabbit's name is called Bandit.
Bandit, the rabbit, yeah.
Yeah, so it's Indiana and Bandit. Yeah. It's like the coolest duo ever.
That's awesome. And Indiana let you borrow Bandit for a few days.
Yeah, she was with us on the set.
Oh, cool.
She was actually really important because she was like the rabbit wrangler. And she's
an actor, and she read lines with me. So I would look at the bunny, but she'd be saying the words.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So you weren't just like staring at an inanimate. Well, not inanimate, but not saying anything.
Yeah.
That's cool. One thing I do want to ask actually is where did the title of the film come from? I mean, Waltzing Matilda is obviously an extremely well-known Australian song, but how does that factor into the inspiration of the script?
There's actually a song as well called The Band Played Waltzing Matilda, which incorporates the melody of Waltzing Matilda, but it's like about the war in Turkey, like Anzac, which ends with like the Waltzing Matilda melody, but like really sad. I just had that in my head for some reason, just like the main character being alone in the world and singing that melody. Yeah, I kind of backtracked from that. And I guess because of that, I tried to make it more Australian in a way.
As you said, you guys, because you come from both Sweden and Spain, that you wanted to sort of lean into the Australian icons, and again with the song, whereas potentially Australian filmmakers might not go there because it's not cool or not international enough or something. But yeah, awesome guys. So so you sort of had some strategies where you were putting it out there, doing funny posts on Facebook and emailing a bunch of stuff, which I think sometimes filmmakers can look over. They think like, I'm this incredible auteur, I've spent hours and hours, making this film, and they think that the world should just come and appreciate them. But, half the job can be just getting people, either bums in seats or getting eyes from people to actually watch the film. So that's cool that you guys had that strategy in place to, get it moving. But can you just talk to me about, some of the responses you've been getting and how it made you guys feel when, if it did get into any festivals, what that reception was like, and also just the online audience, what they were saying about the film?
It has been really positive. We got in so many wonderful messages and comments.
And how many views has it got?
Not too much. It's not like the cat videos, but like I'm proud.
The reaction has been really positive. We just got one bad comment, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the guy who said, well, I think we got in like 2 or 3 comments from people who really hated it. So there was the guy who told us, there was less thought put into this film than I put into my daily bowel movements.
That's so funny, isn't it? Like, just online stuff where you get like all these like really positive comments, and then like one, like I remember like I've also launched a YouTube channel along with this podcast, and I got one dislike on a video, and it just like ruined my week. It wasn't even a mean comment, a guy saying that he something about his bowel movements. It was just like this anonymous dislike from someone in the world, and
haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate. And I try to remind myself, it's like, oh, it's probably some loser in his mum's basement, but it still got me. It still got me. So so that's really cool. So it's on YouTube and also in several film festivals. What's next for you guys? Are you planning on working together again, or are you working on a project, Jonathan, or what's in the works?
We're actually figuring out if we could adapt this into a feature, which is maybe a bit bold, but I think there's a lot of things going for it that would be like really good for a first feature film. I think the story, because I have a lot more ideas for the story. Like when I made a short, I came up with so many other ideas, but like you just can't fit it into a short film. So I that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm writing a feature-length script.
Sort of version of the short.
Yeah,
cool.
Which would be like, it would be really different, obviously, but the short would serve as a really good sort of proof of concept, I'd imagine. Yeah, definitely. So hopefully we're gonna do that. Maybe I'll finish the script and I'll find this doesn't work, because it is hard making a film about the last person in the world. Like you'll find usually these last person in the world films, they eventually, like halfway into the film, some other survivors come in. Like it's hard to sustain a story with just one character, but we have a bunny.
If Bandit's available, you might be able to still pull it off.
Maybe he's too big for us now. His career has actually like kicked off.
Seriously?
Yeah, he's like in web series and stuff now. He's more famous than his owner, actually.
Wow. Yeah, I was disappointed we couldn't get Rabbit.
I thought you meant that he got fat, because the bunny is fatter now. I saw him the other day and he's so much bigger. But he's famous too.
Yeah.
If we do the feature, we have to put into his contract that like he has to lose weight.
Yeah. Awesome. So if people are interested in checking out the film and connecting with you guys, what's the best place to be able to do that?
Waltzing Tilda on Facebook, probably.
And that's Waltzing Tilda.
Yeah.
Not Matilda, just so people can.
Yeah, Waltzing Tilda.
Yeah, cool. And as you said, the whole film is on YouTube. People can check out. Don't just watch it on your phone. Pop it on your TV or on a big screen. And you've also released a sort of VFX breakdown as well.
Yeah.
For any filmmakers who are interested in how you guys pulled it off and what the original shots look like, which are really, really cool. Yeah, awesome. So just as we're wrapping up, I wanted to introduce a new segment into this podcast, basically just asking you guys, what's a film that you think that everybody should check out? Maybe it's a film that's slightly underappreciated or not many people know about, or maybe a lot of people have seen but should maybe revisit.
I don't know if it's unappreciated, but I really, really like Under the Skin. It's half documentary, half drama, and the main character is Scarlett Johansson, and then a lot of people, I've heard from a lot of people that Scarlett Johansson just plays characters without depth, and that film is great.
Yeah.
So I recommend everyone to watch it, definitely.
Yeah, that's the one where she approaches real people in Scotland in this van and sort of picks them up, but then it sort of is also this, they were real people and they didn't realize they were being filmed, but then they also feature in the narrative structure. Like I think they went back and got release forms and stuff. Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
So everyone should check it out.
Under the Skin, there you go.
Good film.
Jonathan.
There's a New Zealand film called The Quiet Earth, which is about the last man in the world, which I don't think a lot of people know about it. I didn't know about it until I made this film and sort of researched all the other films to see how they did it and what they did right and what they didn't do so good. That film is really cool.
And what's it called again?
This Quiet Earth.
The
Quiet Earth.
Cool.
It's from 85, I think.
Okay, Holly, finish it up,
All right.
please.
I really want to say something Australian because I think that Australians don't watch enough Australian content. But can I go into television? Because there's so many good shows being made at the moment and no one's watching Australian television. There's Rake and Wentworth and a lot of what Matchbox is making, like Devil's Playground and The Slap a few years ago was awesome, Barracuda. Just watch Australian television. There's so much excellent stuff being made.
Okay, cool.
Can I say I saw a film last night called On the Beach from 1959, and it's also an end of the world story, and it's set in Australia. I think it's an American production set in Australia, but so all the characters are Australian except for one American, but everyone is American. All the Australians have American accents. It's with Ava Gardner and what's the guy from Psycho who plays Norman
Bates.
Yeah.
He must be old now.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just found it weird. That thing again with Australian films, either they try to hide that it's Australia or they get American actors.
Yeah, it's to the point where they're making films in Australia with Australian actors who all have American accents.
Yeah.
And they're made by American production companies, but they're just pretending that they're not in Australia, but it's cheaper to film here or something.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point that you raised, Jonathan, that, potentially if there's more Aussie filmmakers who are interested in making Aussie films, featuring Australian people, that'd be great and probably would have a larger film industry. But hopefully, that people can learn from a Swedish director that's a lesson to take from this podcast for sure. So, guys, thank you so much for doing the podcast. I had heaps of fun. And I hope everyone checks out Waltzing Tilda on YouTube and send these guys some love, shoot them a message or say hi to them on their Facebook page. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Stories Through the Camera podcast, episode 5. Once again, the film is finished. It's been released and you can watch it online. I'll have the YouTube video linked up on the Stories Through the Camera website at www.storiesthroughthecamera.com. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. I'll also put a link to the VFX breakdown video that Jonathan made, and that will really give you a good idea of, how detailed some of these shots were and just how much effort these guys went to pull this film off. So, definitely check that one out as well. Finally, if you haven't yet, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a rating or review on iTunes. It'd be awesome. If you let me know what you think, give me any feedback, and tell me how you're enjoying the podcast so far. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a good one, and got new episodes coming out very soon. See ya.